welcome to Two Profs in a Pod. I'm Tanisha.
I'm Beth.
And we are professors at Glendale Community College here in Arizona. And we are also faculty developers for our Center for Teaching, Learning, and Engagement. And we are so excited to be here today. Beth, can you tell us what we're doing today?
We are going rogue today because we have a special guest named Kareem Soto. Hi, Kareem.
Hello.
Kareem is a student here at GCC, and we are going to talk to him about an experience that he was involved in last spring and over the summer. So he took part in a research experience for undergraduates, and we wanted to talk to him so we could nerd out about science a little bit.
Yeah,
Which is kind of my thing.
Because y'all know we're nerds.
And we also thought that this would be a program that other students at GCC could apply for. And so it's important for instructors to know about it so they can recommend it to their students, and maybe important for students to hear about so that they can apply. So that's what we're doing here today. So we have a long list of questions for Kareem.
Yeah.
Our first question is, can you just give us a brief overview of what students do in this program, and then a little bit more specifically about what you did?
So an overview of what I did in my research program, or the program itself, is to look at, stuff that's learned in class, and then you apply it into the field. Since this was a field research internship, we took the scientific method, which is observations, coming up with questions, and then analyzing that, and then coming up with a conclusion, maybe factual, and sometimes you don't learn anything. And that was it. So it's a very general, but that's, it broken down. More specifically, what I did is the same. I read literature. I was curious on, with my specific organism, what I could look into with what little is known, because not a lot was known on the organism I studied. And then I did just that. So then we came up with methods on what to do, and then we applied it, and we got data. So that's what we did.
Nice.
Cool.
So what was the organism you studied?
So I studied the glass frog. The scientific name is Espadarana prosoplepon, and it's a glass frog.
So
Yeah.
I will call it the glass frog.
Okay,
I
yeah.
can't say the other one.
Yeah, you can. I'll call it glass frog as
the
well.
glass frog. So that
Yeah.
was the organism you were focusing on.
Yes. Uh-huh.
Okay. And you were applying, you said observation and research, analysis, the scientific method,
Yeah.
correct to that. Okay.
Exactly. Yeah.
Oh, that's exciting. That's
Yeah.
so cool.
It is. So I have a question. What question were you exploring, or was it more than one question? And what was your process in getting to that question? And did you throw out questions?
Okay. So originally I came in really excited. I was like, I want to do this, that. But then when I got there, and then with the little literature that was present, and discussing with my mentor, not a lot can be done at that level, because we didn't even have a basic knowledge of what's known. We didn't know anything about them really. There's a paper done in 1984 by Susan K. Jacobson, and that's it. There was no other paper. So we knew there were frogs, and we knew that they were green. So that's about it.
Yeah.
So we were like, what could we do? And I was like, so I kind of came in with the cell biology, because that's my major at this point. So I was like, what could I do and apply what I've learned? So I was like, maybe looking at the toxins, what's in the the mucus they release, keep themselves hydrated. Could that be applied? But then when I got there, I was way way back to the what's basic about them. Oh, we don't know what eats them. We don't really know anything about them. So then I discussed with my mentor, and it was established that that's it's good to have that curiosity and want to do it, but you have to realize that we're limited in time, and also equipment. So my question was originally to do that, more in-depth, more molecular. But then after talking with my mentor, it was so they don't have parental care. So in a lot of frog species that aren't the glass frogs, they know that there is parental care, or sometimes there isn't. But in this species, we knew the female will lay the eggs and kind of just stay around there. That's it. So then I reading the literature, thought, well, the purpose of parental care is to provide protection for your offspring and to increase the survivability. would it then be like safe to assume that lack of parental care would suggest low selective pressures? So then I was like, that's what I want to do mine on. So it seems very simple, but like the work that goes into like every day checking them and like, just really being there was much more difficult than it sounds. But that was it. So looking at like what selective pressures are acting on them, like what's reducing their surviving, and like, yeah, that's it.
So them not having the parent around could possibly reduce their chance of survival.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
So like the purpose of the parent, of course, is like to increase their survivability. So if they don't have it, then there must not be a lot of things like trying to eat them. So it's more of just like, it's like humans have like children and parents raise them up, and then like they're more likely to survive than just leave a baby on the side of a road.
Right.
Or like any animal, So yeah.
Okay. And I'm apologize right now to our listeners if I ask questions that are pretty basic, because science is not my background.
Okay.
Communication is my background. so I'm really glad that Kareem is here to break it down for me, because there's a lot I don't know. My biology experience goes back to like high school when we dissected stuff, and that's it. But you're like in Costa Rica doing this amazing work, which I think is so exciting. So I'm listening to all this, and I think this is awesome that you have had this opportunity to experience this.
Yeah.
So for students who might be listening right now, or maybe even instructors who are curious about the process and the program, what did you do to apply for this program? Like, what were the steps from application to getting accepted?
Okay. So first of all, I learned about this internship because my biology professor at the time mentioned it at the beginning of class.
Who's your biology teacher?
My biology instructor was Dr. Schweineman.
Okay.
Oh, shout out to Dr. Schweineman.
Yeah, shout out to
sharing
her.
the information. Okay.
Yeah, no, I really appreciated that because she put it up there like as a possibility. And it's interesting because at that time, like I was like, just go for it. She was like, just apply, just do it. And I was like, well, like field research, like that's not like, I didn't wake up and like, I want to be a field biologist. But I was like, I've always kind of been curious about that, growing up. And so I was like, okay, so I'm going to apply. And it was very standard, ask for like your transcript, your GPA, like classes you've taken that relate to biology and field research, or like field research in general. And you have to have a letter of recommendations as well from 2 instructors. And one of the instructors is just going to be a letter of recommendation, and the other one is going to be your home mentor. And they're going to be the ones advising you before you go to Costa Rica and after you go to Costa Rica. And I had the honor to have Beth.
Yes. Beth.
Shout out to me.
Shout out to Beth.
Yeah, big shout out to Beth. Yeah, because I really would not have been able to go without her. And I was lucky to have one mentor who was very involved from the very beginning to the very end. And even now, here I am on this podcast.
You're not getting rid of me, Kareem.
Yeah. So now I have a permanent friendship now. But yeah, so then the actual after that you apply and you get the letter of recommendation, your transcript, and then you just kind of play a waiting game. And I got an email back from Joanna Goyes, who was my mentor, my field mentor in Costa Rica. And I got an email saying I was looking at the applications and I was wondering if you were interested. Would you like to have like a Skype session? And I responded, yes, I would like to have the Skype session. And it's not like before, like I didn't hate frogs. I also didn't love frogs. Like frogs are cool and I know they're important. But like I was like, yes, because I know it's a wonderful opportunity. And so then she interviewed me. Things went very well. We talked it was supposed to be 30 minutes. We talked for an hour. And then 2 more weeks later, and I got an email that was like, congratulations. While I was showering, I was like changing the music, and then I was like, drops phone. And then I went. Yeah.
So when were the applications due in the spring? Do you remember?
That's a great question that I don't remember.
I feel like it was January-ish.
That sounds like it could be a date that the deadline was due. All I know is it begins June 4th and it ends August 7th, the actual internship.
And I think you were notified maybe sometime in April.
Yeah.
So I guess what I'm getting at is the process took a while.
Yeah. And I also forgot to add that, like, for the instructors, it's also a process. After I asked Beth to be my home mentor, she had to go through a series of applications as well. And that took some time. I think you could attest to that. And then after it continues, so while you're over there, you still have to be communicating with the student who selected you as your mentor.
And for the listeners, if you're not aware, that means that Beth had to go out to Costa Rica on site, right? To mentor for the program. So I think that's a great opportunity for mentorship.
Right,
too.
and that's optional. So even had I not been able to go to Costa Rica, that would not have affected whether or not Kareem would have been accepted. But I also felt like being invited would let me know like what he was going to be working on, and I could kind of check it out ahead of time because we went a week before they went, and so I'd kind of scope out the situation and see what it was like, and if check out the program a little bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, Kareem did present his research at the end of the program. I think it was maybe late July or early August, and it was live streamed on the web. So I did log in to watch that presentation of what he had done. So yeah, there was communication between us while he was still in Costa Rica. We had a couple editing sessions of papers and other applications and so forth too.
Yeah, for sure. I was the fact that you have the English background helped so much because like the science, we had science people there, but then there was like you brought the English component to like, okay, here's this, like now you would just clean it up a lot. But yeah, so it really helped a lot.
Yeah. Well, it was fun. It was cool because I love science, so it was awesome to hear about.
Did I answer the question entirely?
I think so. Yeah. Yeah. And I think, in our show notes, we'll link to the Organization for Tropical Studies website, which actually right now they're in the middle of redoing. I don't know if you visited it lately, but they're transferring their information from kind of their old site to a new, really snazzy looking site right now. It's got awesome pictures on it.
Wow.
So the last time I looked, they did not have anything up about their summer 2019 program, and it might still be a little bit early for that, but and that's kind of why I was trying to get an idea of the time frame if people are listening and kind of want to know, well, when is this that I would actually apply for it? So you apply in the spring for the summer program, and it's early in the spring semester.
Right, yeah.
So probably November, December, January, start checking the website for the information.
Right, yeah. That's a good tip.
So, okay, what discoveries did you make?
So it was actually really cool. So, with the very little literature that there was, the coolest thing I think was that like after monitoring the clutches for like a month and a half with like little to no.
What's a clutch?
A clutch.
So for our audience.
For our audience. Okay. So from beginning to end, so you'll have like there's this process called oviposition, which I didn't know what that was before I got there, but it's essentially like the females on the bottom and the males on top, and they just kind of hug, and that's it. And then magically a clutch appears, and the clutch is the eggs, and they're in this like membrane solution, this like mucusy looking clear solution that just hangs like down from a leaf, and it's just protection and moisture for the eggs as they develop.
How many eggs in a clutch?
So the average was, for me, what I determined from like 26 clutches was about 24 eggs average in a clutch. Okay. Yeah. And what was really cool is like the original paper said that it took about like 10 days for the eggs to hatch, but I was only able to find one clutch to hatch like completely because it took about 18 to 22 days. So it was a lot longer than what was originally like source or what was originally like put out there. And it could be because like at the time, definitely 40 years is a lot of time for things to like advance. But there's this whole thing called embryoplasticity, which is like there's the clutch, and if there's like something introduced that stresses the eggs, they know to pick up like even like as a small embryo, that like it's a snake, and they'll like release themselves from the egg, and then they'll hatch. So they have a possibility of surviving.
Oh.
So it could be that like originally like that's what it was, like handling them like triggered that. So yeah, but it took 22 days approximately around there. Yeah.
So what you're saying is that the original research, or maybe I could even say when you were doing research, the eggs were possibly less handled or disturbed than they were during the original research.
Yeah, maybe. If I recall correctly, the original research would find clutches in nature. So I think it's actually the opposite. We handle them more. So we built like an enclosure with separated compartments. And in that enclosure, we'd hang a leaf. And then that we would put frogs that were found in oviposition in that. So we knew that they would mate. And then the next morning we'd wake up and there's a clutch. And then we'd take that clutch out of the fern that it was attached to, and we'd reattach it to somewhere where they would naturally lay it. Like when we would go around like at night, like looking for them, we'd find them in plants that look like orchids and like obviously close to the streams and like about 1 meter high. And so we would look there, and then we kind of set some standards like, okay, we have to put them 1 meter above like the water, of course, close to water. And just zip tie them, and then we'd cut it, and then like they would grow there. So if anything, we handled them more.
Oh, okay.
So we handled them more.
Interesting.
And then you said that the frogs would hug, and then the next morning there'd be a clutch.
Yes.
I was stuck on that. I'm
No.
like, that's a lot of babies. That's 24 babies in 24 hours.
And that was on average. Sometimes it was like 33. So I'm not sure.
I didn't. Wow, I find that amazing because I didn't think that it happened that quickly. Because I'm thinking, a clutch of babies, so it would take some time. I'm so sorry. You gave that whole explanation. That whole time I was stuck on. Oh, so they hug. Yeah.
That's what she's gonna take away.
That's gonna be my takeaway.
It's
Is
such a
that
sweet story, though, isn't
so?
it?
Yeah,
They just
it's so
hug.
cool. Yeah, they just
just
hug.
It's nice, yeah.
Aw,
Refreshing.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
So sorry. I didn't mean to derail that. Okay.
But
Where are we?
I don't know. Sorry, that was derailment.
no, but so that was like the numbers that I found. But in terms of like simple observation, the whole thing with my whole hypothesis was like the lack of parental care suggests low selective pressures. So I was looking for like predation, fungal infection, if they were being like rain stripped. So with the heavy rains, if they were being like flooded away, as well as like just failure to develop. And one more that I'm for some reason blanking on. So it's a fungal infection, failure to develop, predation, desiccation, and so desiccation was the one I was missing. So in the time I was there, we actually observed all of them. And there was no literature on my species that I studied. There was no evidence of predation. And one day we actually photographed wasps attacking the clutch. So they'd kind of like dig their face into the egg clutches. And it's like the embryo's in the center of the egg, and like the jelly is like obviously serves for the moisture, but it also is like a barrier so things can't get in. And we saw like wasps like attacking them. And we actually learned, and what's also important to know is that when the wasp attacked, it was the start of El Veranillo de San Juan, which is like the little summer. So it's like every year this happens, it's like a mini drought. And it actually affected our research because we couldn't find frogs anymore because they need the moisture. So the last 2 weeks we were there, the three of us, because I had a research partner, Rebecca Vera, shout out. And we just couldn't find anything. So we were just like, oh, we can't find anything. But then it's actually funny because my research partner, Rebecca, was like, have you noticed that there's a lot more bugs now that it stopped raining? I was like, yeah, you're right. There was just giant grasshoppers, like everything. And then the next day, it's when that happened. Like the wasp attacked the clutches. And then it was like after that, we saw katydids, which are like grasshoppers, but different. They attacked them. And it was just like no one had ever seen that before. And it was so cool. And they would eat the embryo, like even if it was like close to hatching, or like the dead egg that was just kind of looked white and like opaque, and then they would eat it. And like we learned that like smearing, so it's like that egg that failed to develop, it would be white, and then when the wasp would attack it, like it would leave a smear, and then we'd use that like to concretely say like wasp ate it. It was really cool.
That's
And
awesome.
yeah.
Yeah. That's really interesting.
It also sounds kind of gross.
But
And sad.
but I would it's
Yeah, it
sad
was,
and
yeah.
depressing. But I think from
Well-
a cell biologist perspective, it's really giving you insight into and also helping you to gather information on a species that there isn't a lot of information about, and it's awesome being kind of on the forefront of collecting that information and seeing that there.
Exactly.
Well, and it's kind of interesting to see that during that little drought period, probably it changed what animals preyed upon.
Exactly.
Right? Like it changed the little cycle or the what do you call that? Like the
food chain.
yeah.
And it's actually interesting that you mentioned that, because I completely forgot. We saw like a species of snake that is like known to eat frog eggs, and that was like, we had never seen that before. We'd seen like normal like tree, like thin small tree snakes, but then we saw like that one, and Joanna was like, oh, that one's like known to like eat frog species, and she was like, make sure to keep like a special eye, because like if it hasn't rained and like there's no smearing, then like that ate it. And there's this whole thing like the actual writing of the research says like, just say what you found, like don't leave the details in. Like for example, we were using camera traps at the beginning to like see things, but everything that was happening was way too small and like couldn't be picked up. But for example, if a snake would have attacked, we could have seen that. But yeah, that's often not mentioned, is that like you leave out the details in the middle, and they just want you to know, like just put the factual and ignore everything else.
Okay, next question, Kareem. What are some things that other students there studied? Because you were with 15 other students, right?
Yes.
Okay. What are some things they studied?
Okay. So we had 16 students, like you said, and then we had 8 mentors. So each mentor got 2 students. So, and within those 2 students, like they worked on their individual projects. Some of them collaborated, but I won't talk about all 16, but some of the ones that really stuck out to me, originally I had wanted to work with the bird group. They were looking at the avian malaria. So that was really cool. They would set up like bird nets, and like catch all types of birds, and then draw blood samples from them and see if there was malaria present and like the effects of that. And that was really cool. There was also a group that looked at the Anolis aquaticus. And this was my favorite, I think, out of all the projects, was the girl Andrea. Shout out to Andrea. She looked at the... So Costa Rica is very famously known for its biodiversity. So, and it brings a lot of tourists. And what she was like, what her whole project was like, and with that like surge of tourists coming in, like there's more interactions between like organisms and people, and like what effects those interactions have on the organisms. And she looked at particularly, and she was influenced by her mentor, Bree Putman, if I remember, who looked at like, how does like the color of your clothes affect like how the organism responds. And Andrea looked at the Anolis aquaticus, and they have like this dewlap, and it's just like this flesh of skin that they use to like display and like communicate with other lizards. And so the dewlap is orange, and so like they would wear different colored shirts. Like some days, like the lizard group, it was for people, they would wear like orange shirt, and like the next day they would wear blue, and the next day they would wear yellow, and then they would wear red. And like they looked at how they would respond, because like in the original research, which was her mentor, it like takes a lot of energy, like it's a large energy expenditure, because they have to like run away or fear. That all takes up energy from like trying to hunt or trying to mate. So it takes a lot of energy. And she found that when they wore orange clothes, like the organism was much less affected. So it's this whole culture of like being ecologically responsible, and like being aware that like there's a saying like, when you go, like you leave just a footstep and nothing else. Like don't leave like I don't know, just leave your footstep, just something organic, and like step away and like know that you're not hurting the organisms, because you're not causing fear and then causing this like response that like takes away from them. And I thought that was really cool. There was a bunch.
And I know that this program from the Organization for Tropical Studies also had a cultural component that they really wanted to work in. And I'm not sure if that was their design or maybe Scott's design. Scott was the the director of the
coordinator, yeah,
of the program. So do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Okay, yeah. So I'm not exactly sure like who started that, but I'm pretty sure as the coordinator, I think he did like heavily emphasize that. If not like OTS, like he brought it upon himself to bring that aspect, which I think was really important. Like for me specifically, it wasn't that much of a culture shock just because I am Latin, but like Costa Rica, like for everyone else, the different people, like specifically I would say like the people who were not Spanish speakers, like the Pacific Islanders, they were from places I had never even heard of. So it was a cultural like awareness for them, like going there to like Central America, but it was also like a cultural awareness for me because I don't know if I'm just ignorant, but I didn't know where Saipan was. Like if you gave me a map, I didn't know where Guam was. I know I learned about it, but like I couldn't put it on the map. Pohnpei, I didn't know where any of those places were. And then here there are like people coming in, and it sounds so weird, but there's like people out there that like you don't see. It's really weird. And like they were like, you know, listening to Spanish music, and like they were dancing like traditional like Spanish dances and just interacting with people who weren't like them. And like I was interacting with them, and I thought that was like a very beautiful aspect to it. It was amazing. Yeah. You learn a lot like about people in general and like about yourself. So I think it was just as valuable, if not more, to the scientific process because, I mean, at the end of the day, we're just people. Yeah.
And this is, we might want to say too, this is a program that is for minority students.
Yes.
And that's because it does receive funding that is specific to like the funding attached is because it's minority students. So
right. Yeah, I forgot to mention that, but yeah, it was a minority internship, and I think that made it like even like more enriching because it was ensured that you're gonna have diversity, and diversity is so important, which is another thing. But yeah, so so it was a minority internship. We had people from all different places, backgrounds, and it was really, really enriching. Yeah,
because and it got you in touch with SACNAS.
It did, yeah.
Which is an organization that supports minorities in STEM fields.
For Chicanos and Native Americans, and minorities in general. But yeah, so...
And you're presenting.
I am presenting October 11th, 12th, and 13th.
Okay.
Ooh. Yeah, I'm excited. And yeah. And there was another thing that I know I really wanted to mention, and I'm blanking right now, but... Okay, so given that it was a minority internship, a really important component to it was like that we were able to, because we were all minorities, we all shared very similar backgrounds, and we all kind of grew up the same way, and it was very easy for us to like relate to each other. And I think that was really important because like it's not necessarily like you feel alone, but like in the process of trying to like educate yourself and like do more than what your parents do, like you then see that there's like a lot of people doing it. It's not just like what you thought. So it really like expands your view that, I don't know, it's just very enriching. But we also had an indigenous population that was very exciting. There were the Nyobe community, and they're a tribe from Panama, and it kind of like breaches into Costa Rica. And we had the chief of the Nyobe. So it's separated into different sections, but the chief of where he's from visited our research in biological station, and we like got to tour with them. And we also had the representative of like she was like the artistry, like, so she was an artisan, and she would like make handcrafts. She would make like yarn out of like, when we went out to the field, because like we were giving them a tour, but really they were giving us a tour. They like walked outside, and then they'd be like, oh, do you see that plant in the back? Like that we use for like fungal foot, like cure. It's like, oh, okay. It's like, oh, do you see that leaf? Like that leaf in the rainforest, like a jaguar stepped on. I was like, what? Like they could see things that we couldn't see.
Right.
And it was really cool. They taught us about their language. They were very I don't know, very curious about us, just as we were curious about them, and more of like showing what they know and like us showing what we know. But yeah, so we got to dance with them. It was really cool. They showed us their traditional dance, which is like a zombie kind of thing, which is really cool. But it was really nice to just see like these were the people that were originally there, and they're very tied to their culture, and they're like they're fighting very much so to preserve that culture and not lose it, because like when people like modern kids, like, you know, they have this like disattachment to like their culture, like, oh, I don't care about that, but it's important. Yeah, it's very nice.
Okay. What do you think are the big lessons that you came away with?
So there was a lot of lessons, but definitely like the focus of the program was to enrich our backgrounds in the scientific method. And I think that definitely was accomplished. Like we took this question, did the research, and then we ended up writing a manuscript that was put in like a book, essentially like a book. And that was really cool. We also learned like, we did like, and it wasn't just field research. Like we didn't just go to the field every day. We had the cultural awareness. We had like a field trip to Finca Cántaros, which was it was this lady and her conservation program, and like her vision of conservation and how important it was to her. And like we learned how important conservation is, which is like something I was already aware of. Like I was always an advocate for like, don't use straws, like don't use trash bags, you know, use reusable bags. But like seeing like, I don't know, it was just like seeing, it's gonna sound funny, but like seeing birds and like seeing 50 birds in one day of different species. It was like, I think it's important to take care of this, just because it's like, I don't know, they're here, we should take care of them. It's really important. As well as like representation. I learned a lot about like representation. The mentor gave like a seminar on their like what they thought was like what their research was on, and there's one instructor who gave a seminar on like her story about becoming like interested in the field research, and she wouldn't have been able to do it if she hadn't like seen her instructor and like seeing her doing it.
I think that ties into what I think is very, very important, especially when having conversations about diversity and inclusion, especially in fields where there is an underrepresentation of minority participants, whether that be women or African Americans or Hispanic students. That representation is so key, that there's just something about seeing others that you can relate to that makes you think to yourself, you know what, that's something that I can do, or it's even encouraging, right? It's like, well, if they're doing it, then I can do it too. And that makes more and more people want to participate in it. So I think that's great that that representation is there, because representation is extremely powerful.
It's super, yeah.
What advice do you have for students who are thinking of applying to the program?
I would say my biggest advice is to apply. Because
just do it
because like there's nothing that I would say. I'm not the best student, but I'm also not the worst student. I'm like in the big pot of average. But like and that was very like discouraging for myself. I was like, my whole mentality was like, well, just apply, you're not going to get it, but just apply so you get familiar with like the process of applying. And I even mentioned this to yourself, Beth. I was like, I'm probably not going to get it. And I was like, I even missed a class to go ask Beth to write my letter of recommendation. I was like, it's never going to happen. When I saw that like email, I like dropped my phone in the tub. I was like, what? And the reason why I got it is because I did it. Like there's nothing that separates me and 98% of the students on this campus. Like we're all here. We're all trying to better ourselves. And there's really nothing that like, I just do it. There's actually a student who didn't meet the minimum GPA requirement, but she applied and still got in.
Yeah.
And people recognize that enthusiasm and that drive to like expand yourself and experience different things. And I'm so glad I did it. And it doesn't take a lot of effort, and you get a big reward. I would say that this internship was like to date the most amazing thing I've ever done, just because like it's so multifaceted. There's so many components to it that it's like, I wish every student could do this, because I feel like it made me a better person, because I don't know, you're just like more aware. And there was like because at the fuel station we would eat with people. There's a bunch of people, and I met a girl from California, and she was there, like she was like an assistant. She would draw, and one day we were talking. She was like, "You're gonna go back, and you're not gonna be satisfied with like being there," and it's so true. Like I was like, "Yeah, I mean, whatever, you know." But then coming here, I was like, "She's right."
Yeah.
It was so weird. It was so weird. Like, Beth, no, yeah. I was gonna say a really dumb point, but okay. So I haven't had my license in like years, and I'm almost 30. I'm only 20, but I don't have my license, and like that's something I should have gotten when I was 16. And for so long, I just postponed that. And I came back here, and I was like, I'm gonna get my license. Next day, I took the exam, the permit exam, got it, and a week later, I got my driving exam. But it was like just this drive, and I still kind of carry it now, and I hope I carry it forever.
I do too.
Yeah.
That's so interesting. I don't think I would predict that, really, that the experience would have done that, would have created that in people. That's interesting.
It is, because like you were saying yourself, like once you see yourself represented, it's so much easier to be like, it's not necessarily to say like I'm worth it, but it's more of like envisioning yourself there. It's like, just like you said, if they can do it, why can't I?
Yeah, why can't? It's like a motivator.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like, yes, if they got their stuff together and they're up there, then I can do it too. Yeah, absolutely. So that's definitely a motivator.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, like I had my mentor, she was like a Latin powerhouse. She was Colombian. She grew up there. She went to school. Now she's in the United States. She works at a museum, you know, and she's a herpetologist there, and she's like doing field research, and there's other field mentors from Spain. Well, yeah, but just different people. And it was really nice to see that and know that like I did it. Like I went there, did it, succeeded, came back. And it's like, I did that. And that was like a mini master. Like I can do it.
Right. And it's great. All because you decided to just put your name in the hat. And I even encourage students, it's like, you know what, just put it out there. Just put your name. You know, what the worst they could say is no, but what if they say yes? And you have to think about, well, what would have happened if you didn't say, I'm going to apply and see what happens? You wouldn't have had that experience, and you wouldn't have been in the place that you are right now. So the fact that you have the courage, even though if you're like, I don't know what's going to happen, but you just put your name in there, just putting your name in the hat you never know what the results will be. It could be life-changing just because you're like, you know what, I'm just going to do it. I'm just going to jump into the deep end and do it. And look at where you're at now because of that decision. So kudos to you for doing that.
Thank you.
Definitely.
Thank you. Yeah.
I'm just even thinking back to Kareem calling himself average and all of that. And I'm
no.
That took a lot of courage.
Yeah. Especially if you think, oh, why would they pick me? And I will even raise my hand and say that there have been instances where I'm like, why would I put my name in the hat? And then I do. And I'm so glad that I did. And then I think to myself, what if I didn't do that? Right. So, yeah. And then also just giving us the confidence to help us to realize that, you know what, we're working with a lot more than what we think we are. Right. We're more than just average. Right. We bring a lot of value to what we do and to the table. It's just a matter of just believing in that in ourselves. And sometimes we have to have those experiences for that to happen, for us to realize, you know what, I'm pretty great at what I do. You know, I'm pretty awesome. So, you know, and then it also probably encouraged you to probably do even more field research, right? Even more projects like this, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like originally I didn't have any like connection, I'd say, to field research, but like just going there, coming back there, one of the students there was like, oh, like in my school, like there's a bison conservation project and like frogs are cool. And I really learned and enjoyed, and I'm thankful that they exist, so I was able to do that. But like the idea to like do bison conservation sounds so cool, and conservation in general. Like I was mentioning, like that wasn't originally any like a part of my plan, and now it's like, well, maybe I want to minor in conservation and kind of combine the two, and like what can I do to help like not erase like the footprint that people have left, but like kind of just make the earth a better place, which sounds so cheesy
not at all.
But yeah. Yeah.
Cheese is good. We like cheese.
We like cheese.
Well, and it's, you know what, and it's on it's not cheesy. It's passionate. It's
Yeah.
important.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of things can start with one person.
Right.
So, and we never know who that one person is going to be.
So true.
That's true.
That discovers something or starts a program or... So what, if you could do anything differently about the experience you had, what would it be?
I can honestly say nothing. I wouldn't do anything differently. If there's like a review on Yelp for the OTS program, I would say a 10 out of 10. Because
Nice.
I genuinely like everything.
You should
that
look it up. Maybe there is.
I know, maybe there is a
actually
Yelp.
might be. Imagine 4 out of 10.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, but really like everything from beginning to end. But yeah, I would change nothing. Like I feel like I risked it and I was rewarded, and everything in between was as it should be.
Well, thanks, Kareem.
No, oh, you're welcome. And thank you for having me.
Oh,
Sorry.
thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for being here. This was awesome. I'm so excited you put your name in the hat.
I know.
And you got to experience this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And it's definitely fun listening to your experience and especially the things that you learned and got to participate in.
Yeah, I would definitely say it was a privilege, and like it shouldn't be a privilege. Like more people should be able to do this. But you definitely have to risk it. Yeah.
Well, I hope you being here today will encourage more people to participate, especially their students and also faculty who are probably interested in being mentors as well.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that is it. We'll see you guys next time. Thank you so much. Bye.